I grew up in fast food nation. 70s and 80s, we got the TV dinners. We have Chef Boyardee, bologna sandwiches, white bread, Cheetos, cheese puffs, Little Debbie snack cakes, Hostess. All of that came onto the market and we were all eating it. As far back as I can remember, I loved food, but I always had an insatiable desire for cookies. You know, cookies meant a reward. It meant fun. It meant something was going good. I just really liked food, and I really especially loved sweets. I began dieting at the age of 12. I developed a binge eating disorder early on, like middle school, high school. It got really bad from this diet. My rebelling against diet culture, I couldn't put that into words then, was to eat everything that was forbidden. People listening in, you might resonate with this, the forbidden foods. When we eat something off plan, we don't know what to do with that. We failed in some way. So let's just have our fill of this because we're going to start over on Monday. So that right there was the beginning of how I lived my life for over 3 decades. The diet trap really got me. There's a part of me that doesn't like to be told what to do, especially when it comes to you can't eat that when other people can. So food should provide a balance of 2 functions, okay? Nourishment and satisfaction. And if it's too much in one direction or another, then we're out of balance. The people that come to me after reading my book typically share that value, health and fitness or health and wellness, and they're doing things, they feel trapped in their relationship with food, that the decisions that they're making with their eating are usually too rigid, by the way, and they feel out of line. Why am I binging on sugar on the weekends? Help me. Dieting teaches us to check out of our own inner wisdom and believe what somebody else is saying we should do, okay? And that robs us of so much. Which came first? The addiction or the deprivation?
The following podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice or opinion. Audience discretion is advised. Welcome everybody to another episode of The Health King's Court, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Health. I have a very wonderful guest with me today. She helps women find solutions for chronic dieting, emotional and stress eating, their sugar addictions, and their body image challenges. She's a national board certified health and wellness coach, a mind and body eating coach, a fitness professional, and the international best-selling author of the Diet-Free Diva. She specializes in helping women find solutions for unwanted eating concerns such as restrictive dieting for weight loss, binge eating, sugar addictions, and emotional eating challenges. In her book, she shares her own powerful story of growing up as an overweight child and offers her readers a 5-step plan for breaking free from the toxicity of diet culture. She outlines a trifecta of mind, body, spirit healing that helps women achieve peace and freedom with food, body, and self on their own trusted and sustainable terms. It is my pleasure to welcome Tracy Desjardins. Tracy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Zach. I'm so honored to be here on the Health King podcast, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, me too. And thank you very much for attending. So let's jump right on into it, Tracy. You are in the area of health, wellness, but specifically in regards to food and diet and perhaps nutrition, if you use that word. What brought you into that line of work in the first place?
Yeah, wow. I love that question, and I get asked that a lot, and I think it's so appropriate for me to kind of give the audience a splash of my past and where I came from, because I'd love to connect the dots, because a lot of people can probably share similarities with my own story. Well, first of all, there was a time in my life where I did not diet. I wasn't hyper vigilant with what I ate. And I honestly didn't really care what I looked like. And that was a really great time for me. And that was many, many moons ago. So I was born in 1970, so I will be 54 in May. So I've been around a good number of years, and I've had some really abundant experiences with the trial and error with restrictive dieting, with exercise, all the compensatory behaviors that go along with trying to fight the war with dieting. But I'd like to say that as far back as I can remember, I loved food. So I'm from an Italian family, and I just remember, like, from the earliest age of like 3. So anybody listening in, like, how far back can you really remember being alive? For me, it was definitely like the age of 3, maybe even like 2. It's pretty fascinating to think about that. But I always had an insatiable desire for cookies. You know, cookies meant a reward. It meant fun. It meant something was going good. And I just remember, like, I just really liked food, and I really especially loved sweets. And I remember literally from the age of like 3 or 4. Now, this was back in the day where we were able to run freely through our neighborhood area. Okay, we made friends, we rode our bikes miles away. And I can remember I made a good friend who ended up being maid of honor at my wedding many moons later. She was the youngest of 3. I was the oldest. I was the only child at the time, back in like 73, 74. At her house, oh, food was good. I mean, they had so many flavors of cookies. They had a drawer in her house, okay? And you could tell it got used a lot because it had a certain sound. It would squeak. And I quickly caught on that I could manipulate that drawer and get it to not squeak. But I remember going to her house and sneaking cookies from the drawer, from, like, I'm talking age 3 or 4. I thought nothing of it. And I can remember as I progressed, as I grew, I didn't have a problem with the cookies. I didn't have a problem with overeating. I just kind of aligned with my appetite, and I like to eat, and I was fine with that. Very active, okay, outside, running around with my friends, riding bikes, things we did back in the day. And I remember, like, through elementary school, I started to get a little chubby. And I started to notice getting a little chubby, maybe like around, I don't know, 3rd, definitely 4th grade, things started to shift. And I no longer fit into the normal clothes for girls. Okay. Now, back then, the plus size clothing was very limited. The boys were termed husky, the girls were termed pretty plus. That was me. And I remember, like, the clothes were comfortable. They were like the yoga pants of today, right? They stretched. It was great. No, like, tuck your shirt in and, like, pull the belt tight. None of that. I was comfortable in my clothes. And as long as, like, the top had like a iron on of like a roller skater, Donnie and Marie, or Sean Cassidy, I'm showing my age here. Okay. I was happy with that. And, like, I had kind of unruly hair, and I had a big personality. I'm trying to paint a picture here. And I didn't really worry or care about what I looked like or what I ate. I was comfortable in my skin. I was comfortable in my body. I made friends easily. I had a big personality. Now, this is before I started obsessing over food. Okay. I had a big personality. And I remember this was key. I liked myself. I was comfortable in who I was. I almost, like, I knew who I was. I was not afraid to create a ruckus. I was the class clown. I was frequently getting kicked out of the classroom. I talk about this in my book, by the way. I I frequently was kicked out of the classroom for uncontrollable laughter. So when school got boring, I'm a creative person. Okay, you put me in history class and math and science, it's painful. So I would initiate my friends to start laughing. I get the kids going. I would frequently be asked to leave because I was the one that was causing the distraction. Life was good. This was just it was part of who I was. And I would go to the secretary. I'd sit there in the principal's office. There were always donuts and coffee. I can still smell what the principal's office. Not that I was eating the donuts and the coffee, but it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to come hang out in here. This is good. And I was confident in that. I really felt like I was on to something. I was honoring that part of me that kind of liked to break the rules a little bit. And all of a sudden, something shifted. Like 5th grade, things started to shift a little bit. And then 6th grade, it was almost like I entered I entered sixth grade with this new revelation that I had to change my body and these pretty plus clothes weren't cool anymore. I wasn't cool. I noticed what was cool. Everything about me had to change. My curly hair wasn't cool. My pretty plus clothing was officially dorky and unacceptable. I started to notice what boys admired. I didn't have any of that stuff. And what I think what pained me the most is I also believed that my real personality needed to be tamed and I had to be something different. So I put on this mask. I put on this mask trying to be somebody different because my free spirited self was going to fit in no matter what. I was hell bent on that. There was a survivor aspect of me, and I bought in to what culture was telling me. I had to diet because I had to fix my body that was unacceptable. I was my this pretty plus aspect of me was now embarrassing, whereas before I was like, do I even care about this? No, all of a sudden I cared. So Zach, that was the beginning of a warpath. I began dieting at the age of 12, 12, like a lot of other people, men and women. And nowadays, the research shows early as 8. And I'd like to say that I went dark. I couldn't say that until I began healing through this. I went dark on myself and I left that fourth grade, like badass, spiritually aligned aspect of me. I left her in the dust, chasing what I believed I needed to do to be admired, loved, accepted, even in my own family. Thin is in. And, my parents wanted to protect me. And I get that. I really get that. And I thought, okay, well, here we go. Get out of my way. I'm going to do the things I need to do. And I developed now, there wasn't a term for this back then, but I developed a binge eating disorder early on, like middle school, high school. It got really bad from this diet, restrict, feel isolated. Eventually that goes bad. We give up on that. We rebel. And my rebelling against diet culture, I couldn't put that into words then, was to eat everything that was forbidden. People listening in that can relate to my story a little bit, you might resonate with this, the forbidden foods. When we eat something off plan, we don't know what to do with that. We failed in some way. So let's just have our fill of this because we're going to start over on Monday. So that right there was the beginning of how I lived my life for over 3 decades.
And so, what was your parents' relationship like with food? Because a big part of your story is going to the friend's house and they had all that, like yummy, sugary cookie selection, but perhaps that wasn't at home. So, what was your parents' relationship with kind of food and health overall? And if you could, let's talk about on one side what they said and kind of what they would say to you to instill in you, but also if it was different, what they did. What was their health kind of like themselves?
Nobody ever asked me that question. And I love the fact that we have time to go deep there because this opens up your audience to think about their relationship with their parents and their family growing up. That's a big part of my story. My parents were highly driven and very responsible people. And they loved me. They protected me. They took great care of me. They boosted me up. And I believe that they were very responsible about having a balanced selection of food in our home. There was dinner on the table every night, and it was all, there was meat and potatoes, the vegetable, all things that was very functional in my life. I remember that they noticed my insatiable desire for when the cookies came out or the desserts. I couldn't get enough. Like I really wanted more. I love the taste of that. So I think they got a little concerned about my desire for sweets and seconds and thirds. They were not overweight. My father, he ran track in high school. He was a thin athlete. My mom was not an athlete, but she was very naturally thin and she didn't have an appetite like mine. So she didn't quite understand like why I always wanted more food. And that was really a rub between us. She tried to, but she really, in her attempts, was trying to protect me. And my father was trying to teach me good habits. Now, my friend's house, it was like no holds barred. They didn't have really a health reference the way that My household did. So when I went there, I learned to sneak, I learned to party on, and I felt like because there were no parameters, there were no like rules like I had in my house, which some of it was overly restrictive, but not all of it. I just knew that I could go there and have as many cookies as I wanted. And yeah, now my father, in the next phase of my story, my father was a big influence to me with exercise, which was quite the blessing there. And there's more to that story. Did I
Yeah,
answer your questions?
yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think it gives a takeaway lesson right there of be careful where you're sending your kids off to. They're not in front of you and they're in someone else's domain, that can have life-changing influence on a positive or a negative, you know, on that child. And so did your parents ever get privy to what's going on at the friend's house, that it was just kind of like a la carte sweets? And how did that go over, if so?
That, yeah, did they? I think they probably figured that out. Yeah, I'm probably because my friend was always a little scared to come to my house. So there was something going on there. I'm sure that they noticed that. But it's really kind of funny. I have two grown children of my own. Okay. And I had a really wonderful, intentional balance of food relationship and that I modeled for them. Did that much differently, but I did notice that my children had some friends when they were little that would come over to our house and they would raid the pantry looking for fun food because there was so much control coming from there. And I saw that. Oh, I saw that so transparently. And I really felt compassion for what was. And I recognized that. And I really identified with what was going on there because that was kind of me to a degree. This is where the diet trap really got me. There's a part of me that doesn't like to be told what to do, especially when it comes to you can't eat that when other people can. It's an important part of my story to say here that my friend whose house I went to all the time, she was she had the ectomorphic body type. She was real thin and she could eat whatever. I did not have that body type. So, this isn't even funny, but I used to refer to us as I was like body shaming, like we were Laurel and Hardy. I'm aging myself here, Zach. Laurel and Hardy was an old cartoon, okay? Laurel and Hardy, you had the stick figure and then you had the roly poly figure, and we were Laurel and Hardy, and that was tough.
Yeah, and that was another one of my questions. It's like, okay, that was what was going on in that household, but what were your what was your friend's kind of body? Like what was going on there? Like there the same concerns or the same things I'd have to address, but you answer that, so thank you. And
Yeah.
so this brings me to a question for you. And what is the purpose of food? Is food supposed to be purely functional? Is food supposed to be for enjoyment? Is it supposed to be a mix? Now, not like what's been culturally conditioned or culturally taught, but your thoughts on the actual function of food at a basic level. What is it for?
Thank you so much for asking that question. I'm going to answer it and then describe my thoughts and feelings about my answer. Okay. So, food should provide a balance of two functions. Okay. Nourishment and satisfaction. Nourishment, nutrition, satisfaction, and pleasure. And if it's too much in one direction or another, then we're out of balance and there's usually a problem going on. Now, I'm going to fast forward my story a little bit here. Okay. I grew up in fast food nation. 70s and 80s, we got the TV dinners. We have Chef Boyardee, bologna sandwiches, white bread, Cheetos, cheese puffs, Little Debbie snack cakes, Hostess. All of that came onto the market and we were all eating it. The Kool-Aid is better than soda. Really? That was the commercial. So, my father was a very active man. He would do workouts in our basement. He'd play music loud. And I thought, well, what's going on down there? So I'd go down there, jump around with him, sweat, discovered that I liked that feeling. That led me to building a passion later at the age of 13 for aerobic exercise, jump around with a bunch of crazy people to loud music. I mean, it gets no better than this. Who doesn't like this? That became my future. So in my work in the fitness industry, I worked with a lot of bodybuilders, right? I worked with some like hardcore driven people, not just competitors, but people that were buying into having that cut physique. You know, men, you got to have cut. Men and women, you got to have those abs. Women, you got to be shaped and chiseled, cut, lean physique to be respected in the fitness industry. This was late 80s, 90s. Okay. And I'm in the throes of that. I heard frequently, eat to fuel your body. Well, okay. That was a problem for me. I already had a problem with food, okay? But when I heard, everybody listening in, okay, if you've heard, eat to fuel your body, food is medicine. Yeah. But guess what? The message that is sent can be, eat just for fuel. Eat clean to fuel your body. Well, that really doesn't sound like there's any joy in that there's something missing in that description. So we can get caught up. What do I have to eat to lose the weight, to get the body? Okay, I'm going to eat these things. And so there can be a warpath with food that is void of the very important need for pleasure and satisfaction in those food choices. See how my voice even softened up as I talked about that. So to answer your question, food should serve the purpose of not only nourishing us with vitamins and nutrients and fiber and minerals, but also bringing in that very important element of satisfaction and pleasure. And this is one of the elements that I work with my clients, that right there.
Yeah, and that's a big one. And that's a very interesting thing to explore. And I'm gonna perhaps pick your brain a little bit here. Let's talk about the framework of how a mind processes the concept of a diet or what to eat or when to eat or how to eat it, right? Because there's often the terminology or phrasing of, oh, I am either on a diet, so I can't eat this, this, and this, or I want to lose weight, so I can't eat this, this, and this, or whatever. But, and you mentioned it in kind of your language already, but wouldn't a powerful reframe for anyone experiencing those displeasurable thought patterns be, I want to lose weight, so I am not going to eat this, or I value my body and my health, so I'm going to choose not to eat this, this, and this. And yes, everybody else can eat these things. I also can eat these things, but I'm going to choose not to eat them. And with this reframe, we go from a disempowered state to an empowered state of value propositioning, of I value my long-term health, so I am going to sacrifice perhaps a short-term pleasurable and enjoyable sensation of eating this cake, eating this cookie. And I will, in the long term, get more pleasure because I'll get the end result I want. And that aligns with the food is functional thing. If someone feels I want to get the function out of the long-term health, is that perhaps something that can be gone about in a healthy way, that mind frame?
Totally. And you just summed that up so eloquently. Like you could do a blog post just about that because you nailed so many important things. You literally took words out of my mouth and you said that in your very own way. I actually took notes on what you said. Was that good, Zach? So well done. You used the example of can't versus choose. I can't, or I can, or I can't, versus I choose. Right there is one of the secret, shiny little nuggets of wisdom that I spend helping my clients to embrace. We have all been programmed so heavily with, if you want this result with your body, you can't eat this. So figure it out, bring the willpower, bring the self-discipline. Good luck with that. And that harsh missing out, it actually is so isolating, and it's so temporary because most people cannot adhere to that isolation factor with food for very long. Okay. So that's one of the many facets of the diet culture that just creates a problem that didn't exist to begin with. It actually perpetuates a weight regain problem versus a weight loss solution.
Oh, absolutely. Because like you said, there's people that like it's a natural human reaction to want to push back against being told what to do or wanting to like eat the forbidden foods, like you mentioned. And that shift just kind of disarms both of those phenomena.
Completely. You know, I've said this many times. I've talked about this in my group and in my course, and this usually resonates. When we agree to a restrictive diet, like here we go, day one. Anybody resonate out there with day one of your diet? We're all prepared. It's almost like taking that younger part of us and putting it in the timeout chair in the corner and putting duct tape over our mouth. You got to sit there. You're not allowed to talk, and you can't get up. That's what it feels like going on a diet. Another example is you're in a swimming pool and you have a beach ball filled with air, and you push the beach ball down under the water and you hold it there. Eventually, you're going to get tired of holding the ball under the water or tired of sitting in the chair, and you're going to release it. The ball's going to come flying. The kid in the corner that's in timeout is going to rip off the duct tape, get up, and go running amok with all the freedom and the forbiddens that they were held back from. That is, quite frankly, I've used those examples so many times. You use the word disempowering to empowering. When we say we can't versus I choose either to eat this or not based on, and here's the other word you used, values. In my book, this step 2 talks about discovering your top 3 values. We have to get clear on who we are and what's important to us before we can decide what I call it, path of excellence looks like with our food choices, and attaching a why to those food choices versus I can't. So, and you know, and this other, I get my butt kicked all the time here, Zach, with gotta be careful when you talk about weight loss, right? So for the people out there that have a desire to shed unwanted pounds on their body to achieve what I love to call a natural right-sized body for them, there are responsible decisions to be made and choices about food, right? So I spend a lot of time in the space of intuitive eating, and it can get a bad rap for some reasons. I don't agree with everything that they say, but I really take and massage, and I spend some time personally with a lot of these principles, and then I bring them to my clients and ask how they feel about it. Now we're talking. One of the things about, and this is related to the question you asked me, okay? One of the things that intuitive eating talks about is allowing yourself to have all foods, allowing yourself to have it all. Someone that comes from a diet warpath and binge eating disorder is going to sit back and say, and this was me, okay? Are you kidding me? If I give myself permission to eat whatever I want, it's going to be ice cream and donuts all day long. And after years of study and some therapy myself and some healing, included in the steps that I share in my book, how to reframe that, what that means is this. Here's the missing link, Zach. If you and I eat whatever we want, and let's face it, in the USA, we can have whatever we want 24/7. I'm 5 minutes from donuts and ice cream, 5 minutes, if that, down the road. I have permission and availability. It's available. I can make that choice to eat donuts and ice cream and for all day long. And if I do, I'm going to feel sick as a dog. I'm not going to have any energy to do anything. I'm going to feel very depressed. I'm going to be very, very sick in my stomach. My whole body's going to feel horrible. And one of my values, Zach, the number one value, health and fitness, number one to me, because feeling good in my body, that's not vain. Feeling good brings me the energy to work with clients, to write, to sit here in this interview with you. Good energy is really, really important to me. The people that come to me after reading my book typically share that value, health and fitness, or health and wellness. And they're doing things, they feel trapped in their relationship with food, that the decisions that they're making with their eating are usually too rigid, by the way, and they feel out of line. Why am I binging on sugar on the weekends? Help me. There's a misalignment with their value in the decisions they're making with food. They need some help. They need to understand how to break through this conundrum. So I can't have it is much different than I choose not to have it or have it. Easter Sunday is this weekend. I plan on having ice cream. I just do. I planned on it. I've decided, based on a concept of delayed gratification, I talk about this in my book. Easter is one of those holidays that, you know what? I would kind of like to have a little bit of something, something on that day. I don't keep chocolate eggs in my house, but like that day, my husband and I are going to take our two dogs down to the boardwalk in Ocean City, and we're going to go to our favorite ice cream spot and have just a little serving of something. I choose to, not I can't. Everything is available to us, but we have to know, based on what's important to you with your health goals, there are decisions to make. And this arena of giving ourselves permission to have whatever we want keeps us out of the land of deprivation, keeps us out of the land of being told what to do. And it brings us into this empowered place that you described about making decisions that align with the goals that we have, making responsible decisions that are going to bring us the results that we want. Notice, I'm not talking restrictions and dieting and weight, all that. I'm saying we all have decisions to make that will bring us closer to an outcome that we want or keep us from it. These are the conversations, the real conversations that I love having with my clients.
Yeah, and you really laid such an important foundation for conscious existence in totality, not just in the realm of food and diet and nutrition, but everything in life and really that you could ever partake in. If one doesn't consciously comprehend or think about or try to comprehend where they are at currently, so let's use this example. What is the state of my health and my body and my relationship with food? How did I get here? Where have I come from?
Yeah.
And then the last part, where do I want to go? What would I like to get to in this state of health? What are my goals? Only through comprehension of these three things can we at all ever figure out what the next step in front of us should be. But people aren't thinking about these things. And that could be for a variety of reasons. One, they were never taught. Two, they don't value their health or care about themselves at all. Three, they have other things going on that are distracting them. Four, they have, just coping mechanisms because they don't want to face the fact that they're in a very bad spot right now. It's hard. It's easier to just, deny it all and say it doesn't matter. But this comes down to conscious existence. We all, as sovereign adults, have the ability to shape our reality, but we have to take the reins. We have to take the reins and do the work. It's certainly not an easy journey, but nothing good in life comes easy, perhaps. And it's it's a framework that's able to extrapolate into all things. And I really like your either an advocation or recommendation or at least a consideration of intuitive eating, because honestly, I think that's the best route to get to as a goal. I
Yeah.
understand that a lot of people, perhaps even most people's state of intuition is so poor that perhaps they can't do it because they have no self-control. They have no bearing on their values and what can bring them to what they want to be and, how to get there or comprehension of health overall. But I think that is what all should strive for because I can't stand nerds or nerdy things. And these nerdy macro counting, this, that,
Oh,
the other, I must optimize and this and that, blah, blah, blah. Like it's just not real. It's not the way to be. It's really not a sustainable thing either. And that's why we see the cycle of, diet, break the diet and binge, diet, break the diet and binge, because we're trying to apply hard parameters to human behavior. And human behavior is more fluid than that. And human bodies are more fluid than that. The nutrients I need today aren't necessarily what I'm going to need tomorrow, aren't necessarily what I'm going to need next year. And only if I'm trying to stick to a hard, rigid plan or program while my body is experiencing these changes, more so even for a woman whose body is much more fluid even than a man's in its needs and things that it needs throughout time. There's just no good way to do that. You're trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
yeah.
It's yeah, that's what I
A
think.
word you said that I would love to tap into. You keep saying these words, and it's like, yeah, sustainable. Okay. Part of the work that I do is to help my clients. And intuitive eating is one segue that I use. It's not the only segue, but to find sustainable pathways and habits that deliver them the result that they want on their own, personally designed with my help, unique terms. So, what we can habitually do day by day that's not making us miserable is something that we can live with. So, anybody out there that just started this new plan, there's so many of them out there. If you have an intuitive feeling like, I don't know how long I can do this, something's off. I can remember, Zach. Now, this is back when I was I'd have to say every time I started one of my various diets, so many different types, and then my own self-created warpath, I would think, I know I can't live like this forever, but I just want to get to my goal weight and then I'll figure out how to keep it off. Okay. The dieting sells us on shiny things, sexy outcomes that is going to deliver us the most perfect life. Now, I want to say that my goal weight was always, Tracy, optimally, you need to weigh 130 pounds. I don't weigh 130 pounds. I'm nowhere near that, and I'm healthy as a horse. So I was always shooting for 130. I got to 130. I'm a little short chick, okay? I got to 130 a number of times. And I turned into a complete idiot trying to get there because I was so hyper vigilant, so focused on myself. I wasn't present as a parent, wasn't present as a wife. I don't even know how I got through it. I was so obsessed with playing the game to get to that number. And when I was so arrogant by the time I got on the scale, I did it. And then I was so scared because I knew I could not sustain the warpath tactic that I got there. I'm exercising like a fiend. I'm eating things I can't stand. I'm drinking so much water that I'm practically floating. And they got the number, get the accolades for, oh, Tracy, you look great. What are you doing? Well, come talk to me. It really promotes something that, I mean, unsustainable is really an understatement there, but it robs us of our like our spiritual gifts that we have. And the other thing too, what makes me crazy is you have all these diet programs that are out there, intermittent fasting. That's the hot thing. Do the keto plan, do all this, neighbor Betty over there. Oh, she's on Weight Watchers. Look at her. So we hear about all of this, do this, don't do that. Don't trust yourself. You got to do these plans. Dieting teaches us to check out of our own inner wisdom and believe what somebody else is saying we should do. Okay. And that robs us of so much. The other problem, Zach, the other problem is how in the hell are we supposed to eat responsibly and find that balanced path of nourishment and pleasure when we have a continuum of fast food nation? My husband told me yesterday, I don't know if this is true or not. He said he saw on the news McDonald's and Krispy Kreme are now merging. So it keeps getting worse. I can remember being a little girl and on the road that I lived on, KFC, McDonald's, Burger King, all the thing, Long John Silver's. Well, I remember thinking as a little girl, well, that's what we're supposed to eat because it's there. We're supposed to eat that. It has to be good for us because it's there. Innocence. So here we are. There's a crisis. There's a crisis in our country. There's a crisis in the world. And these places out there, the food industry, in my opinion, ain't taking enough responsibility because there's so much money. We're all trying to get healthy. How the hell is a rational person with good intentions able to avoid the overwhelming luring of all of this palate pleasing junk that has been scientifically created to lure us in? Book, is it Salt, Sugar, Fat, Sugar, Salt, Fat, something like that, with Michael Moss, describing the early interventions of some food scientists that are creating this food that hijacks our taste buds. It tastes good. Why in the world would somebody, you know what's so sad to me, Zach? It takes a really self-disciplined and highly motivated person with a lot of mentoring and inspiration in their life to choose an apple and a handful of cashews over going through the Dunkin' Donuts or going through the Burger King and getting something that tastes really good that's available right now.
Yeah.
Fighting chance do we have?
Yeah, there is certainly no shortage of corporations that are profiting off of presenting horrible food choices or food-like product choices to consumers. I'll always bring it back to the frame of personal responsibility and accountability, though, and say nobody has a gun out there to their head to put anything in their mouth. Yes, the board may be stacked not in your favor. There might be more bad options than good options. It might even be a little cheaper sometimes to eat, bad rather than good. But I will always put it back on the end consumer to, what do you value in life? The information is out there. And if anyone has any bit of intuition left in them, you shouldn't be at Dunkin'. So, yes, their corporations are selling stuff, but they're only going to sell it if people are going to buy it, and people are only going to buy it if they want to buy it. And that's really what it comes down to. And so I think as soon as they put ingredients lists that have, you could see the ingredients list of a Dunkin' Donuts donut. So that's their karma kind of mitigated. They're telling you what's in it. If you want to buy it, sure. But I want to touch on something because you were mentioning it. I think it's an important thing to cover. You mentioned you had a goal of getting to 130 pounds. And let's talk about goal setting. Where did that 130 pounds come from? Is there ever a healthy way to say, I want to be X weight, X pounds as a healthy goal? My personal advocation is for setting goals in the mirror, not on the scale.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on goal setting, and where did that one come from for you? Why?
Yeah. I want to make sure I don't go off course too far. So I'm writing this down.
And you can address anything I just said as well in the consumerism stuff, of course.
Oh yeah, no, this is fantastic. And I consider myself, one of my roles is a diet freedom coach. So we're going to take a look at the tools and the tactics coming from diet culture that are keeping people stuck, that frankly are creating problems, not solving problems. And the concept of goal setting, I meet each client where they are. If somebody wants to use the scale to weigh in, great. If anybody out there has a reference like me, where I was always told that I should weigh something that wasn't realistic for how I'm built, I have some former trauma when it comes on getting on the scale at the doctor's office, to the extent, Zach, that I have my physical coming up. I walk in, I say, you know what? I'm going to skip the scale. They don't give me any flack. Okay, can you estimate your weight? Sure. Give them my estimation. Then we focus on other things. I think people don't know that you have that right to do that, by the way. Now, what you said about the mirror, in the work that I do that is really breaking down toxic diet culture, I like to coach my clients on how do you want to feel rather than what does your body look like in the mirror, right? One of the things that's very important to my typical clients, they want to feel good in their clothing. They're not okay when their favorite jeans or their favorite pants are a little too tight. There's a sign. Well, let me examine what's going on here. I know that when things get out of hand with me, with if I eat a little too much of this or too much of that, I don't like feeling thick in my belly. There's a sign. I know how to rein it back in, and I help people do that. But in terms of goal setting, I think that if somebody wants to set a, let's say, goal weight, I get that. If you need something, you need a marker, consider it a range rather than an exact number. Consider it a range. And make sure this is a common thing that has come up for me before. I meet with a client and they're in their 50s, and where the questions come up, well, like ideally, if you could wave a magic wand and have whatever you wanted with food in your body, what might that look like? And they want to weigh what they weighed in college 30 years ago. Well, our bodies shift and change and grow magnificently. And is that realistic? Like, is that realistic? So let's take a look at, I ask people what health means to them. What does health really mean to you? What does wellness and fitness really look like? Can you describe that? What would an ideal you represent and look like in different facets of holistic health? So when we talk about goal setting, again, it goes back to values, Zach. And most of the clients that come to me from reading my book, I'm kind of fascinated by this. These are women, and my husband, by the way, he read my book. He said, all this stuff applies to men too. So all the men out there listening, they come to me. The typical client that reads my book is someone that works quite hard, is not afraid of goal setting in other areas of their life, whether it be career, family, accomplishments, whatever. They're not afraid of hard work. And they're trying to wrestle with eating real clean, and they don't understand why they're going off the rails on the weekends, or they don't understand, why they eat that sugar at 3 p.m. every day. Emotional eating challenges are a really big thing. So I get what I like to term the health champions that are trying to be so rigid with what they believe they should do. I got to eat all plant-based. I have a cookie. Tracy, I messed up. Wait a minute. Is that true? So goal setting is relative for everybody. And I think that we all need to be careful with what we buy into, the influencers that we listen to with regards to who's trying to tell you what your goals should be. It's amazing to have conversations about what's really important to you. Tell me about you.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think is, or we've been talking a lot about food addiction, sugar addiction specifically, even. Do you think most people's food addiction, or at least a major role in the food addiction, is more so emotional addiction, or is it a physical addiction to substances as well? What's the blend there going on?
Oh, I love that. There's so much controversy out there. Okay. So much controversy about food addiction and sugar addiction. And for anyone listening, I want to encourage you. Yes, there's controversy. Yes, there's science to back up both ends of that spectrum. Yes, it's addictive. No, it's not addictive. And I have spent most of my life being unable to control my consumption of sugar. So do I believe that there is something going on with the addictive capability of sugar? I do. That's my take. There are people that refute that. I've gotten my butt kicked on that a little bit, and I will still stand the ground to say, this has been my experience. We have all had experiences. So that's really important before we decide, well, it's this. Okay. So this is something that, you know what? Recently I landed on this ability to say this particular thing. I'm always reading and learning and diving in more, and I encourage everyone to do that. You've heard of which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? It's a fascinating phrase, if you will. Those people that are out there listening they have unwanted eating concerns, they do feel like they're addicted to food, or addicted to sugar, whatever that might be. And they're trying to control and diet and wrestle, deprive. Which came first? The addiction or the addictive behavior even? Which came first, that or the deprivation? Now, going back to my story, Zach, I will tell you, remember when I was in 4th grade, before 6th grade, I was slightly overweight, but it wasn't binge eating. My binge eating disorder, which by the way, is now a diagnosis. It wasn't for a really long time. We just didn't have willpower. Those of us that were binge eating, pisses me off. I didn't have a problem with food until I began depriving myself and restricting on purpose. So my answer to which came first, the addictive behavior or the deprivation? Deprivation caused my problem. Deprivation because I believed I needed to change my body and lose weight put me in that camp of I'm so deprived, I'm rebelling against this, and I'm binge eating and I don't know how to stop.
Interesting. So let's talk about this word deprivation, because can we be deprived of something that has no place in our body in the first place? Processed sugar, especially, but sugars, do they really even serve a function, or are they just a toxic thing that we are trained as, children to have as a reward, and they stimulate the taste buds and they give us the dopamine, and then we get addicted to it physically and emotionally because of the way that it's introduced to us, and then we cut that out later, and now all of a sudden we're feeling deprived. But if someone were to come and say, I have like a heroin deprivation because I stopped doing heroin, well, you probably shouldn't have introduced that in the first place. Is deprivation the right word for going against unhealthy overconsumption of certain foods?
Oh gosh, that's so deep. And that's such a great question for everyone to ponder, right? First of all, I can't speak to drug addiction. I can't speak to alcohol addiction. I don't know what that's like. I can't speak to smoking addiction. I can't speak to that. I don't know what that's like to try to get off those things. And I'm grateful for that, with all due respect to people listening in. My husband, almost 10 months sober from alcohol. We have fascinating conversations about like my vice, his vice, right? And I would say to anybody wondering about this, if sugar is a problem for you, as it was for me, there are places like sugaraddiction.com where you can get so many resources and take that information, take some of that science and really apply that to your life and see. There's so many speakers out there. Dr. Robert Lustig is a big one that has the science about sugar. In terms of the deprivation factor, I'm gonna share something that I believe is really, really important when it comes to the brain and the dopamine and the sugar and nutrition and food and all of this. I really, really, Zach, I do believe that it is important that we give ourselves the opportunity to flush out any processed food toxins or sugar, anything getting in the way. I believe that a detox from junk foods, from sugar, from caffeine, whatever, is really, really a great thing. And I do coach my clients through a detox if they choose to do that. I went through that myself. It was really, really super helpful. And a detox is not a diet. It's a detox. It's a wonderful way to slow down, not just like, okay, I'm not just going to eat fruits and vegetables. I'm going to slow everything down in my life and take some reflective period to really examine so much about myself, including my relationship with food. And it's a way of gently retraining the tongue that we were born with to really and truly desire. I really and truly desire healthy food now. I never was able to say that before. I was forcing myself to eat those things. And I really believe that it takes hard work and intention and dedication and good timing to give yourself that experience of a detox. And after I personally did that, I started to, because it's just what happens. I didn't believe that I was able to like never eat sugar again. I knew that wasn't realistic for me, but I was a little scared because I really had such a problem with it most of my life. So I started to really harness my muscle of mindful eating, conscious eating, to really notice and begin to experiment with sugar occasionally. Do I like it? How is it making me feel? Do I really want more of this? I never knew how to do that. So these are some of the things that I help my clients with. And I hope that I answered your question directly. I want to share something that I had an experience one time. I was interviewed on a podcast, okay? And I'm talking all about, I'm off sugar. And I spent a good portion of a year, this was several years ago, staying away from sweets. I wasn't having desserts. Yeah, I was having fruit and stuff like that, but I felt so good. And I'm talking on this podcast, I'm writing my book and my book's coming out. And I was, I don't eat refined sugar. I don't eat desserts. And I use the term sugar addiction. Like, I'm a sugar addict. I'm a recovering sugar addict. Ask me questions. Come on. And this particular person challenged me about sugar addiction. Is that true? And what this person believed, that it's not possible. Sugar addiction is not a thing. And my face got all red, Zach. I'm sitting there. And I learned so much in that interview. And I said to this person, if you believe that sugar is not addictive, then can you explain to me why, even to this day, Zach, why my husband can have a little fun-sized packet of M&Ms on Halloween, those little ridiculous packs, and be fine and truly not want any more? But if I know, even right now at my stage of healing, if I have a fun-sized packet of M&Ms, zing, it's going to do something to me. And I'm going to want a lot more. I know this because I've tried it.
Yeah.
I've tried that a number of times. So again, people listening in, for every scientist that says this, there's an equal and opposite expert that's saying that. And that's with a lot of these diet plans, a lot of these food restriction plans. We have to go back to our inner intuition and inner wisdom and start asking the right questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always make the qualifier. Nobody's a nerd here. This is not a podcast for nerds that want to see a peer-reviewed study, because you can get a peer-reviewed study to say mostly anything that you want. Science is bought and paid for. Most of it's fake. Some of it's real. I don't care. I'm not.
I have a feeling you've said that before. I have a feeling
it's not a good use of time to try to dig through peer-reviewed studies. Most things, just think about it. Just think about it. Think about it. That's it. Why do you need to outsource your thinking? Think about it. Anyway, and the biggest kicker is that most of the real information will never get a peer-reviewed study that's allowed to be published, because who are the peers? Who are the publishers? Again.
To your point, can I dive in? To your point, I want everyone to know the platform that I take as a coach is so unsexy, and here's why. Here's what makes it so unsexy. I don't sell supplements. I don't sell shiny things. I don't sell solutions. I sell things like, what about you? There needs to be a shift in how we think. What about you? What about me? I say this all the time on my interviews. Let's start to quiet the noise. I talk about putting on special glasses. What about you? What do you think? What do you feel? What do you want? What do you believe? It's tough to do with social media. I'm a big Marie Osmond fan. I'm going to put myself out there and say that I grew up with the Donnie and Marie show. You do know who Marie Osmond is. It's okay if you don't. Nutrisystem. She's that beautiful woman with the long dark hair. Nutrisystem. Okay, commercials. I know you've seen it. I grew up watching her television show. Okay, the Donnie and Marie Osmond show. I know that some of your viewers know what I'm talking about. My childhood dream was to be one of the ice skaters with the feathers that come out on stage, you know. So I followed Marie Osmond forever, read her book. I love her. She's on the Nutrisystem commercial promoting eat this food. You're going to have a flat belly going through menopause. I'm one of those chicks. Okay. And I've seen what that food looks like, Zach, in real life. The Nutrisystem food that you buy online, the expensive processed stuff. I've seen what that looks like. And it makes lean cuisines look like gourmet dining. So we have to be really careful with who we're allowing to influence us, because even me I write about this. I live this every day. When I see her on TV, she's so beautiful. Oh, I can feel a little old ping like, oh man, I want to be like her. And then I think my special glasses go on. Blinders, Tracy, stay in your lane. What about you? Remember remember what we're working on. Remember our values. So this is the kind of stuff that I encourage people to think about and to consider.
It's certainly an art that needs to be perfected or worked on, or it's a skill that needs to be worked on to take positive inspiration from other people where healthy and where appropriate, because there's no way to not be influenced. We are here as people, not in bubbles, to observe the world around us and use it in shaping our own reality. And it is absolutely possible and probably a positive thing to take healthy inspiration from, oh, that person is doing X and I like that. That person is doing that. That looks good. I'd like to incorporate some elements of that to my life. But those last few words are the most important thing, to my life. I would like to incorporate a little bit of like that, but that doesn't mean I am ever going to be exactly that. That person's not me. I am not that person. We have different things. Also, of course, when we get into the realm of TV and the internet, a lot of it is altered from its, real state as well. And, it's something that needs to be developed, because there's also the counterculture that I think is inappropriate and pretty impossible and sets people up for failure in the, oh, don't compare yourself to others. Never look at anyone else. Never. That's just not possible. We're always referencing people, but we should advocate for doing it in a healthy way. It's good to see someone doing well and say, wow, that person did it. I can too,
Yes. And as I'm hearing you, you know what I'm noticing about you? You're a really, you have a lot to say. You're a confident guy. I'm feeding off of your confidence. I love it. And no doubt the listeners are like, you're inspiring. You stand for something. And I'm hoping that the people listening in are feeling that from me too. And I'd like to just recognize that I wish I could bottle that aspect of belief, of everything that you said made so much sense. But when we get off of the show today and later on, I'm doing this thing called social media work that makes me nuts. And I'm going through and I'm doing all the things that my business coach tells me to do for growth and visibility. And I'm feeling ping, ping, ping. Oh, look at her. I mean, it's really tough to not feel that like, oh, ouch, wow. And to feel it's almost like you can't breathe when you see other people having and being and doing and making it look so easy, because it's not. I really believe in these things called, Zach, I really believe that it's possible to strike a balance between self-discipline and self-compassion. Many of us come from this route of, I'm one of them, being self-disciplined at the expense of self-compassion. We got to be hard on ourselves. I do believe that. I really love the challenge of finding a balance between those two, because I believe that is the sweet spot. We got to have some self-discipline. If that word is triggering for anybody, let's call it something else. Responsibility, right? And self-compassion. You've got a story. I've got a story. where you mentioned it before, look at where you've come from and where are we headed? We can't look ahead and do the thing, like you said, set the goals, do the values until we can respect and validate where we've come from. We got to do that first to then work on the mindset reprogramming, which is, it's so great. It's the bulk of the work that I do. And no doubt you do that as well. The mindset reprogramming. We got to unlearn some crap and relearn some new stuff so we can feel like you. So we can feel like, you know what? I got this. I can be on social media. I can see all those people and I'm not affected by that because I know how to get back in my own lane. Not everybody knows how to do that. And it's tough. It's tempting.
Exactly. And my easy actionable for anyone that has that experience of, oh, I'm listening to this and I feel motivated and I like that and that made me feel good, but then I go about my day and that kind of dwindles away and withers away, is take that clip, whether it's from this podcast or from anything else that you think is a positive message, clip it up and play it on repeat incessantly until it becomes your own inner voice and inner thoughts. That's what you have to do. You have to flood yourself. You have to program yourself. You have to program yourself with positive messaging because there's a lot of messaging. We're always absorbing messaging in one way or another, whether we're consciously selecting that message and curating it, or it's just whatever we are exposed to kind of randomly throughout life. So why not choose to flood yourself with those good things and let those seep into your psyche? That's my recommendation. That's what I do when I hear positive messages. And, I appreciate your recognition that I come across as confident and whatnot. I certainly agree, but all things are fluid. All things are fluid. I have my struggles. I have my things that, times where I feel a little less confident than others, but it's something that we have to always practice as individuals. And that's the thing. You have to practice being confident, but that confidence should be founded. That's the biggest part of it too. I am confident here speaking to you about these topics because I have proven to myself competence. I, through hard work, have done things throughout my life that I have demonstrated competence to myself that I could call back on and say, wow, I did do that. I could do this, whatever is in front of me now. I've demonstrated competence to the people around me throughout my life, so then they reinforce it as well. And then I get the positive messaging and feedback from other people as well. But it does take work to get that snowball formed and then rolling. And then once it does, it becomes easier. And so I understand the plight of someone who is not feeling confident in one avenue of life or life as a whole. And I understand that that's a very difficult situation to be in. And it's difficult to break the cycle of lack of confidence. But my thing to those people, who said life was easy? Life's not supposed to be easy. But at the other side of doing the hard, harrowing work of developing and demonstrating competence that leads to accomplishments that will bring you confidence is a wonderful and much more improved life than staying in the, pit of self-despair and lack of confidence. It's hard work, but it's some of the most meaningful work we can do.
I'd love to share a personal story that I had in the realm of confidence. We have time. Yeah. If you don't mind me diving in on this one. Okay. And I'd like to share something that my husband and I both are in a very, very deep alignment with. So I've shared with you that my husband is almost 10 months sober from alcohol. And there's a big story behind that. I'm just so very proud of him. I shared with the audience here that I had a problem with binge eating disorder. Sugar addiction, habitual sugar use, whatever you want to call it. Sugar was my thing. Binge eating was my thing. A number of years ago, I had my last binge. Do you want to know when that was? Wasn't that long ago, Zach. It was the very beginning of pandemic. I owned my own personal training studio. Pandemic hits, right? We all lose our minds. We're all fighting over toilet paper. We had to close our businesses down. Everybody had to stay home. And people like me and you, we can't control anything. Okay. I couldn't control what was going on in my business. I had rent. I had a number of expenses. I had my clients to worry about. And it was like land of the lost. I fell back into binge eating that I hadn't done in a long time. I was kind of controlling the binges, but I started eating 2 pints of Ben and Jerry's for dinner every night. And that was my moment of powerlessness. It was right before I turned 50. And I remember 2 pints and I just was beside myself. And that was my rock bottom. So grateful for that. That was my ultimate rock bottom. It was March of 2020. And you know what happened to me? I was so not confident in my ability to control this. Like whatever I was doing was wrong. I was white knuckling control over this. And I just decided to let go and let God. And when I decided to just let go, I literally had this like, help me. I know nothing. I'm dying a slow death here in this problem. And he said, can you listen to me now? And I thought, wow. So I had an uptick of my confidence, my healing, when I realized that like I can rely on him to help me. And now I got a book. I'm invited on to all these shows, TV, people are coming to me through my problem and my vulnerability and sharing this to the world. I was very ashamed of this for a long time, by the way. Okay. I'm telling the world about this and there's healing going on. And because of that, there's my confidence. So I get tripped up all the time, Zach. Every day, guaranteed later on today, I'm going to get tripped up. I'm on social media, get tripped up, whatever. When I start to feel that, I say, God, take this from me. What do I do with this? I just start having conversations and it's crazy what starts shifting for me. And that's just me. I wanted to throw that out there because a lot of this, I'll speak for myself. I can't handle all of this on my own.
Yeah. And I don't think we're meant to. I don't think we're designed to. I think we are designed inherently to have a relationship with our creator, with God, with source, with light, with the universe, whatever you want to say, you should have a relationship with it if you want to live your optimal and most high functioning and high performing life. And there's a lot of different angles to it because you can go in the route of, yes, I want to turn to God for the strength or like he helps me do that. I also look at it as when we have trouble loving ourselves, if we love God, then we have a reason to push on. What does that mean? Well, if we don't taking care of our health is an expression of self-love, and it's a practice of self-love and self-care. If someone has trouble loving themselves, they're going to have trouble having the values of I need to take care of my health. I need to eat well. I need to do that, or I want to, whatever. But if we understand that we were put here by a creator and we are we are watched over by God, whatever that looks like for you, then we have a duty to do right by him. And we have a duty to take care of the vessel that we have been blessed to have. I think it's a disgrace to God to allow yourself to be unhealthy. He gave you that body. If someone gives you their car and you wreck it, that's not very nice. That's not very respectful to that person. Yeah. You were given this body, you were given this life, and you're going to throw it away. So to call upon that and kind of like keep yourself in check in that more harsh way as well is one avenue that I think can be quite helpful to people as well when they're struggling to kind of find a purpose in pushing on in a healthy direction. So I love that you touch upon that, incorporate that in your work.
Along those lines, you just reminded me of something that I talk about in my book. I'm so glad this came up. People that are struggling with obesity, overweight, maybe they're not overweight. Maybe they're fighting food like I was. I think that it's important to recognize, and I call this vitamin L, embracing vitamin L in the name of self-love. Okay. Now, before the middle fingers go up at me, I get it. I've heard before, Tracy, I am grossly overweight. I feel terrible in my body. How the hell am I supposed to love myself right now? And I'd like to speak to that because I understand that. I understand how that feels. There was a time in my life when I was substantially overweight. I know how that feels. It's not good. And for those people that identify with that, there's a really easy tip to get the dial moving to then be able to think about, the body's the temple of the Holy Spirit. Like, it's a temple. It's just a container. And I'm struggling to take care of it because of my problem with food. I need someone to help me. First step to move that dial forward is to think of one thing that you can start doing right now that will make you feel good. In the name of self-care, what's one thing that you could start doing consistently that would make you feel good? Check this out. I have a great story. I talk about this in my book. Back when I was a personal trainer, I had a client come to me for a consultation. Okay, she wanted to lose weight. She was really down on herself. And she was really, really down. She was speaking down. She was really very, very heavy feelings towards herself about this problem that got out of hand for her. And she was enlisting me to help her devise an exercise program so she could lose the weight and feel better and get happy. And if this isn't like intervention from God, I don't know what is, because this certainly it wasn't my idea. I said to her, you know what I want you to do? Before we start talking exercise programming, before we do any of that, I want you to do one thing. She looked at me like she was scared to death, like I was going to go tell her to start eating fish or something, And so I said, I want you to go out and I want you to buy some clothes. At that time, I said exercise clothing. Okay. Buy some exercise clothing, go to Target, go wherever that make you feel comfortable, that make you feel attractive right now. And she looked at me like her eyes got really big. I said, I want you to go shopping and I want you to buy some clothes that make you feel good right now. We're not going to worry about tomorrow or next month or next year, right now. And then come back and then we're going to talk about your program. Well, she comes prancing in the next time in this outfit she got. And like the look on her face, that's vitamin L. That was the one thing I asked her to do. So we moved forward together and we had a lovely training relationship that had so much more to do than just exercising. So anyone listening in, it is possible, but we have to quiet the noise. And again, like, what about you? What is one thing? If you don't feel good in your body right now, overwhelmed with what to do, get it. One thing that you can do, just one simple thing in the name of vitamin L, self-love, that will make you feel good about yourself right now.
Yep. Yeah, developing a healthy relationship with self-reward is so huge, no matter what that looks like, whether it's, in regards to weight or our diet or just, hard working in life. A lot of people get caught up in just the grind and the grind and the grind, whether it's, purposeful, intentful grind or they themselves are feeling ground down. And they rely on the world around them to externally reward them for their work. But why would we not reward ourselves?
Yeah.
When either, look, we just really need it, or when we really deserve it, or it's been a while, And it's those kind of little self-rewards. Now, obviously, this can be overdone and whatever. All things are nuanced. But, a properly timed and properly executed self-reward of a healthy thing, it could really be such a boost, because then, one, it's fun, it's enjoyable, you get the lasting like enjoyment at a surface level, but two, it reinforces the pattern of I am worth rewarding, I am worthy of receiving, I am worthy of enjoyment, I am worthy of kind of having positive experiences, and it just kind of is another step in that direction and kind of gets that snowball going a little higher. So that's a wonderful practice. Absolutely. So what do you think of today's glamorization of obesity? And I'll just leave it off at that.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Zach, you asked me that.
That's why I wanted to make sure we had time for that first.
Oh yeah. I'm going to say thank you for that challenge. In my line of work right now, I'm really sitting with that. Here's why. I'm a diet freedom coach. Okay. I help my clients break free from the chronic patterns of restrictive weight loss dieting and find peace and freedom with food, body, and themselves on their own trusted and sustainable terms. Okay. That's me. Now, in this whole world of identifying diet culture and in this space of body positivity. As a coach, as a leader, as a writer, as a speaker, I get tripped up a little bit. And recently, I had a conversation with one of my close friends who's a therapist. I said, help me understand some of this stuff. Help me understand how not to cross the line with something I suggest for a client. Am I in diet culture? Or am I suggesting things in the name of responsibility and healthy discipline, which I know you're all about? In the wake of the body positivity nation, I think is maybe what you're asking me about, the body positivity nation.
Yeah, it goes by that name for sure.
Yeah. Now I just finished talking about vitamin L, self-love, right? Treating ourselves well, regardless of where we're at with our weight. Bringing in this concept of self-compassion and common humanity, I think is very, very important. As a coach, as someone who has, and I still work in the line of fitness. I've been in fitness since 1991. Okay. I'm a group fitness instructor mainly. People come to me, all shapes and sizes and ages. We play the music loud and we move our bodies. And my goal, and they know this, everybody, the main goal, stay safe, keep moving. And you feel great about yourself when you walk out of this room. If you're not feeling that way, I want to know about it. Why am I saying that? I believe that everybody deserves dignity, respect, and it pains me to think that people are being judged, discriminated against because of their weight. I know what that's like. That was me early in my life. I was receiving the snarky comments. I was receiving all of the little bit of discrimination. I got a splash of what that's like. And I know how that feels deep inside. And I know how that can fuel binge eating for emotional reasons. So I believe that everybody has a right to their own views, their own values about how they want to feel in their body. Everybody has a right to that. And I also believe in being real and speaking the truth to yourself. So I believe that everybody is worthy of love and respect and validation. And all I will say is there's nothing wrong with wanting to lose weight because you want to feel better, not because you want the approval of the world. And I think that there is a sticking point in this weight stigma nation. I'm not in the weight range that I'm supposed to be for my height. I'm a muscular chick. I got muscle. I've been training my whole life. I'm also just tipping the scales of that BMI. Don't tell me I'm not healthy. Don't tell me there's a problem. I got issues with that. Okay. So I think that the health at every size movement, body positivity, I think there's so many golden nuggets of hell yeah with that movement. I think, however, that can get carried away a little bit. And I think that everybody should really trust how they feel in their body and what their truth is with regards to their own, like what they believe health and wellness is for them. Then find some support. Talk to somebody about that, because their truth, when they honor that, that really brings freedom and liberation in their life. Did I answer your question the way that you were hoping?
Without offending people, probably, hopefully.
Yeah.
I will give my thoughts on it. And I will preface this with my thoughts are not Tracy's thoughts. They are my own. I absolutely agree that there has been the concept of attacking fat people and absolutely, degrading them and treating them less than human. If that's something that's experienced or done, that's awful. My thoughts are that there's been a massive, more than little, over reaction in the social engineering movement of body positivity and fat acceptance and glamorization. And my biggest problem with it is a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's absolutely a wolf in sheep's clothing. And to feed the concept of obesity is great, obesity is fine, this is good, this is health, when it's just not, again, at its extreme degrees, carrying around more fat and pounds than your body is supposed to. And I'm not talking about what the doctor says you're supposed to. I'm not talking about BMI. I'm not talking about charts. I'm talking about genuinely just clearly being larger than your body, your ideal body is intended to be, your whatever. To allure people into that's okay and that's good and that's positive, it's such a dangerous thing for the people that fall victim to it. Now, there's always a personal responsibility. That's my ultimate advocation. But it's just such a wolf in sheep's clothing social engineering movement at its at its core. And that's why I really think that the counter voices to it that are kind of looked at as, oh, you're evil. You don't want people to love themselves. You don't want people to feel good. It's all just a circus at this point, when I think a healthy amount of accountability, and even to use the word shame as a guiding figure, has its place in society, because I think it's built in to us as humans to recognize health. I think it's built into all animals. All animals can recognize a healthy example of their species or not, and that helps them kind of interact in that society. We can recognize health. We know it when we see it, and we feel it when we feel it. And to try to go against that natural process of kind of comprehending what health is, it really only has detriments to those that are being told, no, 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 you should feel good. You don't have to make a change. You're being led into a lot of health problems. And so that's my, brief spiel on it for the sake of time.
Can I respond to that? Because it's fascinating. It's
Absolutely.
fascinating.
Absolutely.
I love how polarizing and upfront you are in your viewpoints. And this conversation is so interesting. I just want to say thank you for that. You used the word extremes, and there was something missing in my response. And you nailed it. I really believe that there are concerns with the extremes, the in body size and weight, right? The extreme thinness, problematic thinness. Okay, that's not healthy. And then the extreme on the obesity chart, right? That's not healthy either. On the spectrum of extremes, but there's a lot in between there to have conversation about, right?
Yeah.
And there's one thing that you said that I respectfully disagree with, which is great that we can say this, right? Coming from someone who did experience shame about her body size, her appearance, and her weight. That sucks. It hurt. It's trauma. I have scars that I still work on with that. I don't believe that shame has any place in those extremes or in between. I think that contributes to the problem. It keeps people stuck. It keeps people using food or not using food to regulate something. I do believe that instead of shame, and this is what the Health at Every Size and the body positivity does promote, and I do agree with this, is replacing the shame is with self-compassion. It has got to start with some self-compassion. Then there's a lot to talk about around that. But shame, as there were some big people in my life when I was overweight that tried to motivate me with shame. And it polarized a rebellious reaction that actually prompted my binge eating disorder. So I will shout from the rooftops, we got to get rid of the shame. I get what you're saying. I'm all about responsibility, Zach. I am all about taking responsibility, but we have to be able to have light conversations, bringing in compassion and empathy in order to get through that, in order to break through. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I really think that is one of the secret solutions to helping people find their right size body, embrace health, and truly get healthy.
Yeah, and that was my masculine framing showing through because my thoughts on the psyche of men versus the psyche of women and the psyche of children and how we best interact with them for their optimal health is absolutely different. And I definitely use that word knowing that it's an aggressive one to ever advocate for being a good thing. And I do not think that shaming children, especially because they are just subject to the choices of their parents, is ever a good thing. And I don't think shaming women because of the way women's mentality and just mind and neurobiology works is ever a good thing. Speaking for men, I think there's a healthy place for someone to be like, bro, you're fat, and that kind of has to hit a man. I think there's different, and again, some men are going to have a mentality where that's never going to be good for them either. But some men, nothing that is ever going to get through to them other than blatantly like poking them and prodding them and shaming them in that way. So I'll absolutely give that nuance and light into why I said what I said. That's why there's a missing part of that. Absolutely.
Isn't that great that we just had that, my example, your example? Isn't it great that we landed there? Because I think that's really, really important. I get caught up, Zach, in like, don't tell me the way it should be, the way that we should all think, the way things that we should all do. The word should, I can't stand it. And we just connected on, somebody might resonate with hearing this, and somebody might resonate with hearing this or not hearing that. And that's really the reality of the world, right? Because we are all fascinatingly, uniquely created different beings. So I'm really hoping that provided a lot of clarity and segue for people to be curious about, like, what do you need to hear? Like, what really motivates you?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, again, I'll always say when someone tries to be a nerd and just find this one, mantra that works for everybody, you're going to have a bad time. And when you're going to take your mantra and what works for you and say it's what should be what works for everybody, again, there's the word should again, you're going to have a bad time. You're going to get pushback, and it rightfully so. People are so vastly different. My personality is not your personality, but it's not even the personality of other 28-year-old men in New Jersey that were born in this, like it's everyone is a bit different. There are patterns and clusters of people. There are certain behaviors and things that probably can be objectively unhealthy and looked at in that way for everybody. And there's certain things that might be universal good ideas. But between those kind of basic laws of reality, there's so much gray area. And that's why I enjoy conversations with people that are unlike myself in demographics and background, such as yourself, because in the healthy conversation and an openness to hearing each other's viewpoints and understand each other's language and why and how we are saying what we are saying is the ultimate value for not only ourselves, but for listeners of the show as well. So thank you for going on this journey as well. And in the remaining time, I would love to hear about where someone can get in touch with you if they've loved kind of your messaging and the way that you describe things and would like to work with you. What's the process of working with Tracy? How do they get in touch with you? How do you intake them? Do you accept everybody? Are you only selecting certain clients to work with? What does that look like? And where do they go?
Yeah. The easiest place to find me, Zach, is my website. Everything about what I do and who I am is on my website, and it's theholisticdivas.com. Will you have show notes? Do you put things in show notes? Do we talk about that? Okay.
Yeah, I'll be in the description of where.
Yeah, yes. Theholisticdivas.com. And on the front page, there is a link, a button that'll take you right to Amazon to purchase my book, The Diet-Free Diva. I also have a free downloadable workbook where you can work through my 5 healing steps. That's free. You put your name in, it'll come right to your computer. You can print that out. So it's a wonderful resource. I have some free resources there. My recent one, Zach, I'm super excited about is called my Emotional Eating Rescue Meditation that I recorded my own voice. Anybody out there struggling with triggers and food cravings, you don't know what to do, you're feeling dysregulated, tap into my voice and I'll help guide you off the cliff of impulsively choosing food. I'm also on Facebook, Tracy L. Desjardins. I'm on Instagram, The Diet-Free Divas. All these links are on my website, theholisticdivas.com.
Amazing, amazing. And I definitely recommend checking out her resources. I went through her book a bit and it is very extensive. So it's certainly a great read. Tracy, is there any closing message that you'd like to leave the audience off with? I think we've provided a lot of actionables. I think we've provided a lot of perspectives that are very interesting and important to consider. But is there any one that you'd really like our audience to take home with them?
There are two things. There's something that you touched on right before you asked about how the audience can reach me, and that is embracing curiosity about this gray area and the gray zone. It keeps us out of all or nothing thinking when it comes to goal setting. I think that there's a lot of healing and perspective in that gray zone. And the other thing too, I would encourage everyone to think about starting to trust your intuition with wherever you're at in your life. Because I really believe that our solutions, our answers, our guidance, and our ticket to our own lives lies within our intuition.
Absolutely, absolutely. The more we get in touch with our intuition, but unfortunately, most people have been disconnected from their intuition. The more we get in touch with it and exercise that muscle, the stronger it becomes. And it is absolutely there to guide us to our optimal life, whatever that is, or our purpose of life, or our meaning of life, whatever that may be for you. Only you can really get yourself there and know the steps that you need to take. No external mentor can do your life for you.
Yeah.
And so it's important to take the reins of your own life. And there's a lot of tools out there to help you do so, but ultimately it comes from within. So thank you very much for that closing message. And Tracy, thank you very much for coming on the show.
This has been a lot of fun, Zach. It's been an honor to be with you on the Health King podcast.
Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day, Tracy.
You too.
A big thank you goes to Tracy for coming on the show. You know, it's such an interesting topic. It's very fascinating that we as humans have the propensity to struggle so much with something so simple and should be natural as what we put in our mouths and what we eat and what our diet consists of. But perhaps it's just a result of us deviating from the natural methods of obtaining food. And as we get more into modern civilization and more towards grocery stores and artificial means of acquiring food that we were never really designed with in mind, perhaps it's only the natural result that people struggle with this artificially induced abundance. And this gets further complicated when so many food options aren't actually even food, but food-like products and synthetic things that have been normalized to consume when they're actually quite strange. Very interesting topic nonetheless. Big thank you to Tracy once again. Be sure to check out her website. There's a link in the description to her website and also a link to some really cool free documents that she gives away. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel wherever you're listening. This way you get notified when more episodes come out. Plenty more coming your way. You're listening to the Health King's Court. Ancient wisdom, modern health.